at the very start of this new year, we have this very beautiful new moon that is in a sign-based conjunction with the Sun, Mercury, and Mars. To give a bit of context here, with the moon beginning its new lunar cycle, it's signifying a new beginning energetically for all of us, and we're going to be diving into what area of life is tied to this Capricorn energy with all of these planets there. In your own natal chart, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Mars are all in a sign-based conjunction in a certain area of your chart, and based off of your rising sign, we can get really clear on that. And I will be doing sign-based readings for all the zodiac signs. We also see that the moon is considered to be in detriment when it's in the sign of Capricorn. And what I mean by that is Capricorn is inherently in opposition with the sign of Cancer. And the moon rules Cancer. So if you imagine the chart of all 12 zodiac signs, the moon is considered to be farthest away from the sign and house that it rules over. And so because of that, it's considered to signify this lunation is less about the feeling aspect of things and more about the tangible actions around things. Like, it's very much this new moon that's all about, okay, you feel this way, okay, you've had these ideas. What would it look like for you to take aligned steps? What can help us to plan and get clarity on the path moving forward with what we have learned and what we know? You know, Capricorn is this sign also associated with the 10th house. It's this sign that's ruled traditionally by Saturn, which is the planet of maturity and restriction, and essentially stepping up to the plate of life when it calls for you to essentially grow and be the person that life is calling you to be. And so with that context, we see this new lunar cycle, this invitation cosmically for all of us to get clear on the path moving forward, and considering that Mars, the planet of action, drive, passion, and sometimes even war, anger, and aggression, is also in the sign of Capricorn. It's joined with this new moon. It's signifying, again, this energy, this mental clarity, thanks to Mercury also being there, this new energetic shift, and these overarching Capricorn themes of structured and educated decisions and alignment to move forward in some way. So for many of us, we might have some experiences around the time of this new moon, a few days leading up to, the day of, or following it, where we notice that our lives are sort of presenting this mirror to us that points to how we can learn and take more educated and thought out steps that's more aligned with the direction that we want to take. Now, again, this can manifest in a more challenging way depending on your unique natal chart and how these transits interact with them on one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, in a positive way, you might have some experiences where you feel really encouraged to double down on what has been working for you. All right, moving on from there, let's go ahead and dive into the all signs forecast. I'm going to give you a custom reading based off of your zodiac sign. I always suggest looking at your rising sign. With all of that said, I will see you at your personal reading and at the end for the journal prompts. Hello to my Aries friends. So this Capricorn new moon will likely be showing up in the areas of your life that have to do with your career, your public image, and your reputation. Think about your outer circle and the sort of reputation or image that people have of you in general. And for that reason, especially because we see that Mercury and Mars are also in this area of your life in Capricorn, along with this new moon, it's signifying a new chapter for you where you might find a bit more clarity around the things to say and the things to do when it comes to your career path or your job, and especially what people remember you for. Right now, especially because Mars and Mercury are in Capricorn with this new moon that is signifying this new chapter for you, you might notice or have some experiences around this time that sort of mirror back to you a bit more clarity around the potency of your words, the impact. There's a bit more weight to the things that you say and even do around this time, and that they can have more noticeable ripple effects, even 6 months out to the Capricorn full moon that is tied back to this new moon. The Capricorn full moon in 6 months is going to be a time where you more clearly see the ramifications of the actions and the things that you initiate or plan around this time. So especially if your career or your job, or how you connect with your outer circle and your community, especially if that's at the forefront of your mind right now, you might notice a bit more clarity around where to begin. You might find it a bit easier to write out lists and get clear on those things, because there's this new chapter starting for you, but also because of that placement of Mercury and Mars there along with it. Now, with that said, I am so excited for you. I think that this is a really great time for you, especially when it comes to networking, especially with Mercury being there. And Capricorn, it's really the sign of structure, of tangible action plans that are very practical and realistic. And since that's coupled with these overarching themes of your career and reputation, I'm really excited for what is to come for you. And yeah, that's my reading for you, my Aries friends. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. Be sure to sign up for the Align newsletter. And that's it for now. Hello to my Taurus friends. This Capricorn new moon, coupled with Mercury and Mars, also in Capricorn, is signifying a fresh start for you when it comes to higher education, your philosophical and even spiritual beliefs, and even things that have to do with publishing, whether that is something that you put out, a work that you put out that could be in book form, or your relationship with education and with learning in some way. Whether you are educating or you are learning from something broader. This new moon being tied back to higher education, learning, and really this expansion of your awareness, which again, tied back to learning. Oh, also long distance travel, because it's tied back to Mercury and Mars being there. This is signifying a time where you might have some experiences that really what's the word? You might have some experiences a few days leading up to the day of or following this new moon that mirror back to you the importance of you sort of locking in and getting really tangible and practical with things that have to do with the path you want to take with your education, the path you want to take with your spiritual beliefs. You might have experiences that kind of invite you, that they might be some experiences that are kind of like, are you walking the walk in alignment with your moral beliefs? What are you actually doing that actually speaks to what your beliefs are? It can be a really great time for intention setting around the path that you might want to take throughout the rest of this year, or even over the next 6 months until we see this culmination point at the Capricorn full moon in 6 months, as it pertains to any intentions you have with traveling, with higher education, and think about deep research. Think about anything maybe you have been called to dive deeper into and learn more about, but maybe you didn't have time to, or you didn't think that it was for you at the time, or maybe there's a limiting belief around that. This is a great time to explore that, to revisit any sort of calling that you might have had to dive deeper into any one specific topic. But I'm reading for you, my Taurus friends, and there really is so much to learn. The ninth house is also can be this house that is tied to being corrected, having experiences that make you realize, whoa, I had this one idea of how things worked, and then I met someone, or I had this experience and I realized it's so much broader than that. And that can be very inspiring. So I'm excited for what you learn, my Taurus friends, but I will see you at the end of this for the journal prompts. Be sure to sign up for the Align newsletter to get notified for, future things. And yeah. Peace. Hello to my Gemini friends. So this upcoming Capricorn new moon is going to be very strongly tied to the areas of your life that have to do with shared resources. Think about shared money, debt, taxes, intimacy, and also pretty notably energetic boundaries. In traditional astrology, the 8th house is the house that's essentially, it kind of rules over the ramifications of marriage, the ramifications of ties to other people. It's also considered the house of inheritance as well. And so with all of that said, this Capricorn new moon happening in this area is signifying a new start for many of you when it comes to your relationship with other people, especially with the people that you share things with. So this could be people who you have contractual obligations to, maybe people, this could be through marriage. This could be your family, i.e. inheritance or things like that. This could be roommates. This could be people that you work with. Essentially think about the people that you're energetically or even financially tied to, or you're considering to be energetically or financially tied to. This is also the house of on one side of the spectrum, codependence, but on the other side of the spectrum, sort of interdependence, where you're very much dependent on other people. It could be in an unhealthy way or a healthy way. All of that to say, this is signifying a fresh start when it comes to your perspectives around these themes in your life. So a few days leading up to or following this new moon, you might have some experiences that essentially invite you to pause, to reflect on where you stand within these types of relationships. For some of you, you might be considering a new contract. What comes to mind is, purchasing a car. There's a contract there where you are now financially tied to a dealership or a bank or something like that. You might be considering buying a home or maybe selling something. These are all things that involve contracts. And considering that Mercury and Mars are also in Capricorn with the new moon in this specific area of life, it's signifying that around this time, there could be a lot of passion involved. There could be a lot of passionate, inspired conversation on one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, this could manifest as potential disagreements. But ultimately, with this new moon happening in Capricorn, the sign of practicality, the sign that initiates through structured, informed decisions and actions, this is really can be a very great time where you might realize things that help you to make better decisions that are more educated, and that might invite you to make more mature or structured decisions versus just jumping into something. You might have some experiences that make you reconsider something that is tied to others, but ultimately this is a really great time to reread those contracts. This is a really great time to pause and reflect on the decisions that you're making right now, because they could be involving deeper rooted contracts, for better or worse. Maybe this is a great time. For some of you, you might be getting married, you might have just gotten married. But ultimately, this is signifying a new chapter, a new phase of life where you could enter into these sort of deeper rooted ties from a more mature and educated perspective, if you choose to do so around this time. This can be a really great time, especially with New Year's resolutions, especially for anybody who's looking to get into a relationship or is in one, or is trying to reflect on how you maybe want to restructure certain dynamics, maybe friendship dynamics, maybe the boundaries you have with your friends or your family or your relationships. And this is a great time to journal about that, to list those things off, to get clear, lean into that Capricorn energy of this more earthbound, sort of grounded, practical, cardinal, structured energy of, let me get clear on what getting clear on what your needs are and cutting through the fluff to get really honest with yourself and with others. These are the overarching themes that might happen for you, my friends here. So all of that to say, I'm rooting for you. I think that a lot of clarity could come out of this new moon for many of you. And yeah, so I'm wishing you the best. I'm wishing you a happy new moon, a happy new year. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts for this Capricorn new moon. And also be sure to sign up for the Aligned newsletter to get this video emailed directly to you as soon as they go up, and to stay in the know of what's going on with me and our line, blah, 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 blah. Okay, peace. Hello to my Cancer friends. So this Capricorn new moon is happening in your 7th house of relationships. It's happening in the area of life that's tied to contracts, but also justice, equitability, and the balance that you have within your relationships. The 7th house traditionally is also associated with things like marriage. So these very important binding decisions that are tied to matters of the heart. So for many of you, a few days leading up to, the day of, or following this new moon, you might have some experiences that end up inviting you, through maybe positive reinforcement or maybe more challenging reinforcement, to get clear on how you want to approach your relationships in the new year. This new moon could usher in experiences that invite you to pause and reflect on the balance of energy within your relationships, how reciprocal they feel, whether maybe you're not the one who's like, oh yeah, they haven't been giving me enough energy. Maybe it's the other way around, where somebody in your life actually finds the words to communicate to you, like, hey, you haven't been answering my texts, or like, hey, like, I feel like I've been putting in a little bit more work in this collaborative space than you have. What's going on? Or those are the type of things that could potentially pop up for you. And again, these are relationships of the heart, and the overarching themes with the 7th house have to do with justice. For some of you, you might also be hearing back about maybe even a legal case or some type of dispute. I don't know why, but what comes to mind is a chargeback on your account where you're like, hey, this wasn't done properly and I need justice in some way. I need my money back or something. Or maybe somebody else is coming to you to let you know, like, hey, like this wasn't done properly. I need a refund. Or, whether that's in a professional setting or in a personal setting, like, hey, I lent you this thing. You know what I mean? These are the overarching themes for you at this time, my Cancer friends. And especially considering that Mercury and Mars are also in Capricorn, also in this area of your chart, it signifies that around this time, pretty important conversations could arise. You actually might notice that there's a bit more weight to the conversations that you have with your loved ones around this time. But ultimately, because this is in the very practical, very sort of mature side of Capricorn, this can signify a time, a new chapter for you where you find a bit more practical action plans and balance within your relationships for the better. And so if you choose to pause to reflect or journal or do anything like that around this time, it could be very helpful. And yeah, I'm rooting for you, my Cancer friends. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts, and be sure to sign up for the Align newsletter to get the videos like these emailed directly to you right before any new moon or full moon. And yeah, peace. Hello to my Leo friends. So this Capricorn full moon for you guys, and this Capricorn full moons happen around this time of year every year. But this Capricorn new moon for you is definitely signifying a focus and a new shift or a new chapter for you when it comes to your labor and your work and the energy that you put in every single day, whether that be the energy you put in to your career, maybe the energy you put into your home life, whether that's cooking and cleaning, taking care of people, whether you are a caretaker or you're in a career path or both, the energy or the labor that you give to others, maybe personally in your life or again, on a professional level. And this really is signifying for many of you. I feel like there's a handful of you that are like, you know what? I don't know what everybody else is doing. Maybe they don't like New Year's resolutions, but I am ready to get clear on what is and isn't working for me. I'm excited to create more structure and stability in my life in one way or another. And those are some of the themes that you might experience around the time of this new moon. You might have already been feeling this, but especially a few days leading up to the day of or following this new moon, especially because we see that Mercury, the planet of communication, and Mars, the planet of action, drive, passion, and sometimes even brute force is also in the sign of Capricorn with this new moon. You might have some experiences around this time that on one side of the spectrum, you might experience some positive reinforcement that leaves you feeling really inspired to sort of lock in when it comes to figuring out what was not working for me in 2025 in terms of consistency, in terms of routine, structure, in terms of what actually nourished my body and allowed me to sustain the work that I love and that I want to do. And how can I get clear on improving upon that so that I can take a step forward in a more sustainable way? There's positive reinforcement there where you feel inspired to do that. And for some of you on the other side of the spectrum, you might have had a lot of burnout at the end of 2025, or you might be feeling it right now. And you're like, I have the energy for absolutely nothing. Get away from me, everybody. And I just want to say that, yeah, basically you might have some negative reinforcement there, where basically that actually could be another catalyst that brings you back to these overarching themes of realizing something needs to change. Something needs to change so that I feel healthier, I feel more grounded, that I feel more balanced in my life, so that I can do the things that I want to do in a sustainable way. Where, it's that maybe more so this negative reinforcement. For some of you, you might have a job where they ask way too much of you, and around the time of this new moon, you realize this is not working. Something needs to change. And for some of you, again, because Mercury's there, Mars is there, that could be some heated discussions. On the other side of the spectrum, that could be some very passionate discussions that leave you, again, feeling inspired and motivated and energized. But either way, there could be a catalyst here that leads you to want to take action to find more balance in your life. Either way, this is a very, very potent time for you to journal, to make lists, and get clear on how you maybe want to grow and evolve so that you can put in labor, energy, or even collaborate with people, taking in energy and labor from others in a more sustainable way that's more structured for you. There's a lot of opportunity here for you to finally find the words, finally find a little bit of energy, not to initiate, not to be in action necessarily, but to finally make a tangible plan that's custom to you, that works for you. You know, that is the overarching theme of this new moon. It's a new moon, so a new fresh start for you, an opportunity, this portal for a new chapter for you to take aligned steps in a way that is more aligned with who you are. And it's in Capricorn, the planet, the epitome of practicality. Like, let's get real here. You know, let's, you know, maybe some of you had like, yeah, anyway, I'm kind of repeating myself, but you get the gist. That is my reading for you. My Leo friends, I'm really excited for you in 2026. And yeah, that's basically it. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. And be sure to sign up for the Aligned newsletter where you can get more info about, sorry, I'm like jumping all over the place. Be sure to sign up for the Aligned newsletter that allows you to get an email of these videos sent directly to your inbox right before any full moon and new moon. And it's essentially an email form of this video, but it also has a video linked. And if I miss a video or something, or if I'm late, you can always just check that email and you'll see what's going on with me. But with all of that said, I'm sending you my love. Peace. Hello to my Virgo friends. So this Capricorn new moon, along with Mercury and Mars that are also in Capricorn with the sun, all of this is happening in an area of life that has to do with your creative expression, with romance, aesthetics. Think about romanticizing your home or romanticizing an aspect of your life. This tapping into your imagination through idealizing something. You know, and I say that because this new moon is happening in your 5th house if you're a Virgo rising. And the 5th house is all about joy, inspiration, creative outlets, and imagination in a lot of ways. And also, I consider this the house of your inner child. Like, what's underneath, you know, the version of you that shows up to work, the version of you that needs to be this responsible adult? Like, what's underneath that when it comes to that pure joy, wonder, curiosity? And what are the things in life that spark that within you? In fact, pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time that you had an experience or a conversation or something happened that inspired you? We were like, oh, I didn't know. That's a great, oh, you know what? Maybe I could do this with that. Oh, I could see a good version of that in this other way. Or you feel really motivated or encouraged by someone. These are the overarching themes of the 5th house, and these are the overarching life areas where you will likely see these Capricorn new moon themes. Now, going back to the signification of a Capricorn new moon. It's the signification of a new chapter in your life, this opportunity to pause, rest, reflect, and get clear on the direction you might want to go on over the next 28 days of this lunar cycle, or even the next 6 months, until we see the culmination of anything that sort of started or initiated around this time in 6 months under the Capricorn full moon. And so all of that to say, a few days leading up to the day of or following this Capricorn new moon, especially because we see Mercury and Mars also here with the new moon, you might have some experiences, whether they're likely through action or conversation, that leave you feeling invited or motivated or sort of pushed to kind of revisit the things that really inspire you. I think that for many of you, there can be a new chapter that involves this evolution or this maturation of your relationship with your creativity, where you realize a few more of the practical steps that can be taken for you to stay in touch with that maybe childlike wonder or that creative expression you've really wanted to dive deeper into, or that you already currently do. and you're looking for maybe, or you might realize, oh, okay, it could be helpful if I have a routine here, or I offer, or I explore what structure could look like to add this into my relationship with that aspect of my life. And I think that for some of you, again, this is very dependent on your own unique chart. So there's a spectrum here. I think that for some of you, you might have some experiences on the more challenging end where, have you ever heard the phrase like, one of the most miserable people to be around is an artist who isn't making art? Essentially what that kind of means is when you're not making your own art, not only do you not have an outlet potentially, but also oftentimes jealousy or envy, or like feeling almost, it almost feels illogical how triggered you might feel from somebody else doing something. For many of us, that oftentimes can come from being around someone who's given themselves permission to do something that you don't give yourself permission to do, or they're doing something that you really want to do. And it's upsetting because it sort of mirrors back to you that you're not doing that thing for various reasons. You know, some people, I feel like actually, let me not go on that tangent. I hope you get the gist. So that's on one side of the spectrum. I think that for some of you, you might see something out in the world that on the top layer, your immediate reaction is like, oh, this person is so annoying. And then if you pause for a moment, you might realize a part of that annoyance that you have is actually maybe envy or jealousy, because underneath that is this longing to do something similar. And that really speaks to the power of actually being able to pause and have some introspection, do some shadow work, especially as it pertains to things like that, emotions like that are considered taboo, that you don't want to tell anybody or admit to, but actually they're almost like they can oftentimes unlock the keys to better understanding aspects of ourselves that maybe we want, and how we can actually give ourselves permission to do those things. And yeah, so that's on one side of the spectrum. I think some of you might have a potential experience like that where, yeah, there's like frustration, but underneath that, it's still this mirror back to you, pointing at this creative outlet or this wonder or this joy that maybe you want to have or you used to have, and a potential pathway towards that. On the other side of the spectrum, you might have really positive reinforcements, a lot of very motivating and inspiring an experience a few days leading up to the day of or following this new moon that leaves you feeling very energized and inspired to, again, pointing back to Mercury being in Capricorn, Mars being in Capricorn, Mercury being the planet of communication, information exchange, Mars being the planet of action, drive, passion, sometimes frustration, where you actually find inspiration, and maybe you finally find the words or the game plan on how you can create a path forward to get that thing. And so really pay attention to anything that could potentially pop up like that for you, my Virgo risings. But I think that not ultimately, but this is just like a piece of advice. If any of this resonates with you, I think that the journal prompt, which is, if you couldn't fail at all in life over the next year, how would you live this year? Or, if there was like one area of life or one thing that you couldn't fail, how would you move? How would you act? Who would you call? What would you do to get that permission or get that acceptance? How would who would you reach out to collaborate with or get advice from, or start the process of actualizing what you want? What would it look like? I don't know. I feel like Delulu is a solulu for many of you. Delusion is a solution. I don't know, but that's just what comes to mind. But all that to say, that is my reading for you, my Virgo friends. I am sending you my love. I'm wishing you a beautiful new moon and a beautiful new year. And I will see you at the end for the journal prompts, the Capricorn New Moon journal prompts, and reminder to sign up for the Align newsletter so that you get an email version of this video emailed to you right before every full moon and new moon. And yeah, I'll see you at the end. Peace. Hello to my Libra friends. This Capricorn new moon, the sun and moon conjunct in Capricorn, along with Mercury and Mars, also in Capricorn, all four of these major planets coming together in this sign are indicating not only this new moon signification of a fresh start for you, but also this sort of energy that has to do with aligning your actions with your words, finding the clarity to sort of map out or intention set your action plans, all of this as it pertains to your relationship with your past, your relationship with your family, And what I mean by that is, I say that because this new moon, if you are a Libra rising, will be happening in your fourth house. And your fourth house is all about your roots, your history, your formative years, your past. This is why oftentimes the fourth house is associated with family life. The fourth house is also associated with your ancestry. And the things from your past, whether it's within your life or even before your life, that contributed to making up who you are today. And what that means within the context of this Capricorn new moon is that I think that for many of you, around the time of this new moon, this new year, a few days leading up to the day of or following this new moon, you might have some experiences where something invites you to reflect on your past. And that reflection on your past is something that ends up inspiring you to look at your path forward with that broader context. So for example, you might be someone who's like, oh, you know what, I'm going to pursue this, I don't know, career path or this hobby. And I'm finally giving myself permission this year to really lean into it. And I'm going to set boundaries with this thing and that thing in my life, so I have the energy for it. And then maybe you have a friend from high school who contacts you and reminds you of how when you were younger, you were so obsessed with this very thing. And it offers you, and it's like the universe is offering you this context, tying back your path forward, you know, diving into this topic, and how, and it highlights for you how you've wanted to do this all along since you were younger. Or for some of you, you might have experiences where you feel called to reconnect with your ancestry or your family or people from your past. And through those interactions, it actually informs you and it informs your path forward. Now, again, because I cannot see your own unique natal chart, for some of you, you might have some more challenging reinforcement that brings you to reflect or reconnect with your past, or you might have some more positive or inspiring reinforcement that invites you to connect with your past. Now, on one side of the spectrum, for some of you, this could potentially look like you maybe having a more challenging or negative experience with a family member or people from your past, or maybe people expecting you to act how you used to act, or expecting you to behave how they behave, even though you've grown past that. And for many of you, that actually might be inspiration in that you're like, wow, I've come so far from that and I am never turning back. Or for some of you, you might have some experiences that really highlight how far you've come from your past. But what highlights that is actually a more challenging memory. And my invitation to you is, if it feels right, you know, if this resonates with you, obviously, I don't know your unique situation, consider, even if those things pop up, consider how far you've come. Consider how much you've grown, even if it's a baby step in the direction of where you want to be. And understand that you have so much capacity and width and breadth and flexibility as a human being to evolve at your own unique pace. I really want to highlight that, especially at the beginning of the year, because we have so much messaging about New Year's resolutions and changing and being different, even though it's literally the dead of winter. So don't feel pressured to like be a different person. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, for some of you, around the time of this new moon, you might have some experiences that, again, spotlight something from your past that leave you feeling very inspired or motivated or encouraged, or that make you excited to dive deeper into that history and better understand yourself. Like for some of you, you actually finally might be taking up therapy and revisiting things that were formative to you in the past, and even restructuring your relationship with those things mentally so that you can have a more constructive outlook on life or on those experiences in some way. So those are some of that's a pretty broad stroke, I guess, but those are all of the different possibilities when it comes to this new moon that's signifying a fresh start as it pertains to fourth house themes of home, family, your living situation, your ancestry, and also your emotional foundations. And again, with Mercury being in the sign-based conjunction with this new moon, and Mercury being the planet of communication, information exchange, learning, it can really signify for many of you that you're learning new information, or you're finally finding the words to educate somebody else on who you are today, or educate or express, finally have the words to piece together and process something from your past. And with Mars also being there, the planet of action, drive, and passion, these could be very passionate conversations, or you might feel an uptick in emotions around this time. But again, it can really, there's a high chance that it can be tied back to your path forward and going back to those more structured, practical, Saturn-ruled Capricorn themes of practicality, tangible actions, and informed decisions, namely informed decisions. Anything that might pop up from the past could be very educational for you right now if you choose to pause and reflect and maybe even plan or get clear on how you want to maybe move or evolve in a different way, or double down on things that have worked that allowed you to evolve. You know, these are the overarching themes, but I'm sending you my love, my Libra friends, and I'm wishing you a new moon and a happy new year. I'll see you at the end for the journal prompts, and be sure to sign up for the Align newsletter to get videos like these emailed directly to you right before the new moon and full moon, and to get, brain freeze. And to get essentially an email form, a newsletter form of these videos. So a breakdown of each lunation. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hello to my Scorpio friends. So this Capricorn new moon will be happening in the area of your life. It'll really be sort of activating or signifying a fresh start when it comes to your communication with others, your social networks, maybe even how you conduct yourself with your social networks, your friend groups, your family members, siblings, even people in your immediate neighborhood. And I feel like definitely for you guys, a few days leading up to or following this new moon, I feel like pretty notable conversations might be happening around this time for you, where you're learning something that is very informative around, that actually helps to educate you on how to better navigate or move socially in your life in some ways. I think that for some of you, especially because we see that Mercury and Mars are also in Capricorn, and this is all happening in your third house if you are Scorpio rising, there's a big like overarching themes around your words. There's a lot of weight in what you speak, in the things that you say right now. And so I definitely encourage many of you to be mindful of what you say, be mindful of the impact of your words. Once you say something, you can't really unsay it, right? And especially with Mars there, Mars is the planet of passion, sometimes aggression, but also energy and drive. And it's being coupled with Mercury, the planet of communication, all in your third house, which is the house also of communication and information. Again, notable conversations might be happening around this time for you. And if you want to set any sort of intentions around this time or anything like that, it can be pausing to reflect on how far you've come when it comes to maturing around the words that you speak, and also how well you listen when somebody opens up to you, and what you can learn from people around this time. It could be you, or it could be somebody else also who ends up opening up, or something notable is spoken or learned around this time. But this Capricorn new moon in general, with that context, it's really, I'm looking at my notes, it's really signifying new beginnings when it comes to your mindset, communication, but also writing, learning. And again, like I mentioned, siblings and neighbors is also an overarching theme of the third house. And just daily routines and rhythms. And I think that for many of you, a few days leading up to the day of or following this new moon, you might have some experiences that sort of mirror back to you your relationship with communication and words. For some of you, I think that you might kind of I don't know. I feel like for some of you, you might make some connections where you realize, oh, this is what they actually meant in that conversation like a week ago. Or like, oh, were they being passive aggressive before? Or maybe you realize that you were being passive aggressive, or the words that you say hit home a bit stronger right now. But ultimately, pay attention to the words that people are speaking, take them seriously, because there's a lot of spotlight on that around this time. And the third house, again, like it's a very cerebral house. It has to do with mindset, and there could be some mindset shifts, some perspective shifts for you as well. But that ultimately is my reading for you, my Scorpio friends. I am wishing you a beautiful new moon, a beautiful, abundant, and aligned new year. And I will see you at the end for the custom Capricorn New Moon journal prompts. And just a reminder to sign up for the Align newsletter so you can get updates via email with a little breakdown of every new moon and full moon emailed directly to your inbox. And they're essentially email versions of these videos. And I give updates on there if I miss a video, and you can just stay in the know. But with that said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hello, hello to my Sagittarius friends. So this Capricorn new moon, coupled with Mercury and Mars and the sun, all in Capricorn, all of this is happening in an area of your chart that is tied to your income. It's tied to the money that you personally earn, make, the things that have to do with your skill sets, the things that you possess, as well as your own self-worth. And oops, sorry, I booped my microphone. It's definitely signifying a new start when it comes to potentially even your relationship with your income, with your money. This could have to do with your job as well. It's not necessarily signifying like a big change or shakeup necessarily, but a subtle new chapter for you when it comes to your relationship with these themes. And considering that this is a Capricorn new moon, Capricorn is all about practicality, maturation, and finding consistency and having informed decisions, not making a change or a decision on a whim, but doing deeper research. I think that for many of you around the time of this new moon, a few days leading up to the day of our following, you might have some experiences that highlight for you whether or not you have been responsible and mature when it comes to your income, your spending, and also the energy exchange that you've been giving to other people in terms of your own self-worth. So it's almost like there's two types of currency that are at play here. The currency of money, but also the currency of your own value systems and your own self-worth and love. And so I think that for many of you around the time of this new moon, you might have some experiences that essentially hold up a mirror to you, that kind of spotlight and invite you to reflect on your relationship with these things. I think that for some of you on one side of the spectrum, the mirror that is held up could be more of a challenging one where you kind of realize, oh, I did not set aside enough money for these tax things, or, oh, okay, I missed that bill, or I didn't set a notification to pay that card and now my credit, think about negative reinforcement or like more challenging things happening that end up holding a mirror to you that invite you to become more of these Capricorn themes of like being more practical and organized and mature with that aspect of your life. On the other side of the spectrum, for some of you, you might have some experiences around this time, especially because Mercury and Mars are also in Capricorn, also in your second house right now, where you are actually feeling very inspired and motivated and passionate about getting more educated on your financial wellness and becoming more proficient in investing and budgeting, and finally moving from this other bank that's been difficult to another bank that allows you to more easily stay in check with and stay up to date with your spending and things like that. And these are the overarching themes for you. For some of you, this might involve your job, your actual job, your career, where there might be a job shift or a change in some way, a promotion, a demotion, some type of shift that invites you to be like, oh, let me go back to my budget, something adjusted here, for better or worse as well. But ultimately, it can be very helpful if you want to focus on any one thing to get clear on financial planning, financial budgeting. Maybe you finally want to look into a high yield savings account, or finally understand what bonds are, or, things like that. Maybe even look into your health insurance and what is and isn't covered under your health insurance. I just recently learned about how some insurances cover your gym memberships and getting massages and physical therapy and certain things that not everybody, it's not really advertised, but you decide to do deeper research into that and learn. So those are the overarching things that could pop up for you around this time, my Sagittarius friends. But that is my reading for you. I'm wishing you a beautiful new moon, a beautiful new year. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you at the end for the custom Capricorn New Moon journal prompts, and be sure to sign up for the Align newsletter to get these videos emailed directly to you right before the new moon and full moon, as well as essentially a newsletter form of these videos so that you can read through them. They're on Substack. I've been loving Substack, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hello to my Capricorn friends, the stars of the show. This Capricorn new moon, the sun and moon conjunct making this Capricorn new moon, along with Mercury and Mars, are all sitting pretty in your very first house of identity, of ego, of vitality, confidence, but also your physical bodily health and the things that you choose to initiate. And so right off the bat, this new moon is this overarching signification for you that this is a beautiful portal for initiating things, starting things. Like, you are really the zodiac sign where when somebody says, hey, the new year is a great time to set new intentions, they're talking directly to you, Capricorns. And it's, it's kind of funny that it is that way, because Capricorns have this association with being very practical and focused and, no fluff. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. And it's funny because, it makes a lot of sense. You are Saturn ruled. Saturn is the planet of maturity and restriction. And anyway, all of that to say, with this being a new moon, it's this signification of essentially this being a great time to set new intentions on whatever you want in life, whatever you maybe want to start, kick back up, initiate. Maybe you want to initiate a conversation with somebody for an interview, or to ask a question, or to ask somebody out. Maybe you want to initiate something with, when it comes to, maybe you're deciding to move or get a new car, you need to call somebody. Or maybe you want a promotion, you want to put yourself out there. These are the overarching themes of initiating anything in your life, right? But considering that Mercury and Mars are also in Capricorn right now, Mercury being the planet of information exchange, conversation, and Mars being the planet of action, drive, passion, but sometimes also aggression and, dominance. This can be a time where a few days leading up to the day of or following this new moon, you might notice a little bit of uptick in energy to, initiate things, but also you might finally find the words to bring something up to someone, to finally speak your truth, or finally ask that question, or finally get the information that you want to get. And whether that be through an email or calling someone or scheduling something. And you also might have sort of mirror put up to you. Sorry if things are like really overexposed. The sun comes out and then it goes away and then it looks really bright. I don't know. Anyway, I might have edited it in post and now I sound crazy, but right now it's very bright. All of that to say, around the time of this new moon, you also might have some experiences that spotlight first house themes around maybe your health. Maybe on one side of the spectrum, it's negative reinforcement, where you kind of have an experience where you're like, oh my goodness, I really need to start stretching more or work out or improve my eating or something. And because of this health thing that came up, and it's this mirror that inspires you to put more energy into your physical health or into the relationship you have with taking personal responsibility with the things that you initiate and the life that you're leading. You could also, on the other side of the spectrum, have very positive reinforcement right now, where you maybe look around and around the time of this new moon, you feel very proud about some of the things that you look back and you realize, I started that. Oh, I came up with that idea. And here I am with the fruits of that labor. Like, I'm really, it feels like you might have some experiences that feel like full circle moments right now. But ultimately, now is a very potent time for intention setting when it comes to the things that you personally want to initiate. For many of you, there could be things that you do want to initiate, but you realize, actually, I need to wait on somebody else to respond, or it doesn't really seem like the world or my community needs that right now, and I want to do something else. Like, it's ultimately how you uniquely interface with your own actions and what you choose to start right now. But especially, again, with Mercury, Mars, Sun, and Moon all being in Capricorn in your first house, your words and decisions, the words and decisions that you initiate right now are literally starting like a new storyline for you. A lot of you guys have an opportunity to start fresh when it comes to anything that is tied back to your decisions right now. So, get excited. I don't know. And all of that to say, I'm wishing you a beautiful new moon and a beautiful new year. That's my reading for you. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts, and I invite you and remind you to sign up for the Align newsletter to start getting an email version of these videos emailed to you right before the new moon and full moon. And also, it usually includes a link of this video too, so you're reminded there. But that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hello to my Aquarius friends. How are you guys doing? I feel like this new moon for you guys is going to is one that could potentially usher in experiences that really highlight the benefits of boundaries. I think that for many of you guys, I think that out of most of the other signs, you're one of the top signs that it really seems like it might benefit you to ignore all of the messaging, to be in action and set a resolution and get your life together in the dead of winter, by the way. Yeah. And I say that because this Capricorn new moon, it not only in general do new moons signify a time for rest, reflection, drawing your energy back to yourself. And oftentimes boundaries are required to do that. But on top of that, this new moon is happening in your 12th house of solitude. It's your 12th house is a house of rest, healing, but also the imagination and the connection that you have with your subconscious that comes from solitude, that comes from pausing to be with your own energy and to maybe even like meditate or just call your energy back to yourself. The 12th house is also the house of spiritual sort of maintenance. In traditional astrology as well, the 12th house is considered the house also of hidden enemies, where for some of you around the time of this new moon, because it's happening in your 12th house, you might realize, or things might come about a few days leading up to, a few days following, or the day of this new moon, where you kind of realize the boundaries that you need to set with people that you didn't realize maybe had hidden animosity, or maybe it's very clear. You're just meeting them and you're like, oh, got it. We do not vibe, and that's okay. And here are my boundaries so that I can keep my energy to myself, not have it scattered, worrying about everybody else's energy and their perception of me, but getting back to my own self. And so that's one element of it. I just went on a whole thing about hidden enemies because of the 12th house, but all of the rest of the overarching themes here that have to do with solitude, healing, retreat, rest, reflection, and the overarching Capricorn themes of being very practical, getting very and what I mean by that is, I think that for many of you, some of you really do want to rest or take a break or finally do some type of retreat, or maybe just get back into journaling like once a week, or finally get back to meditating or your spiritual practices, doing that sort of personal sort of hygiene that allows you to step into the world with a full cup so that you're not pouring from an empty cup, but they're getting the water that's overflowing so that you're not lacking as you're giving, right? So think about the things that for you uniquely allow you to pour into yourself so that you're in that state, right? These are the overarching themes, right? But with Capricorn with Capricorn being at play, this all happening in Capricorn, the overarching theme there is that this can be a really great time, especially with Mercury there and Mars. Sorry, I'm like putting this all together for you guys. Mercury is the planet of communication, information exchange. Mars is the planet of action, passion, drive, energy. It's really signifying that around this time, if you choose to pause and reflect on what is and isn't working for you, where you maybe need to set boundaries, it can come a little bit easier to you how you can do that in a lot more of a practical way. And what I mean by that is, this is a really great example. This paints a really good picture. There was somebody who said, hey, I really want to be vegan, but I love bacon. And then somebody said, hey, you can be vegan and eat bacon. And I get if you're being very literal, like, no, the definition of vegan is that there's no animal products. But what I mean is, like, you can have that diet and just include some bacon. Like, what I mean is if there's something that you've been wanting to do, but you're like, oh, but how do I find a pathway to do that so that I have more this balance in my life where I'm pouring into myself as well? Maybe don't wait for it to be absolutely perfect. So like, try to find little moments where you can draw your energy back to yourself. A great example is like somebody who's like, oh, I want to do a meditation practice, but I can't focus. And it's like, well, pause and ask yourself, what's your definition of meditation? Because there's a lot of people who never start because they believe that meditation has to be this perfect thing where there's no noise, no sound. Any little noise is going to throw me off. It needs to be still. I can't move. And that makes me stressed. I can't do it. And it's like, actually, no. If you look at a lot of the origins of meditation, it actually involved movement. And there's so many forms of meditation. It doesn't have to be a 20-minute meditation or a 15-minute meditation. It could be a 5-minute meditation. You could start with 2 minutes, It doesn't have to be a time where you're in stillness. You could actually focus on your breath. You could focus on literally focus on that vibration. There's so many different ways to do it. And I'm going on a whole thing. I'm just trying to be encouraging because there's so much potential here for you guys, my Aquarius friends, especially because this is signifying a new start for you. So anyway, all of that to say, around the time of this new moon, you might notice some overarching themes that involve what it looks like for you to set boundaries, you might feel a stronger calling to just disconnect from all of this messaging around being productive and resolutions. And that is productive in itself. You have to be able to rest and draw your energy back to yourselves in order to eventually be energized and passionate and excited to be in action, So anyway, last thing, I just want to remind you guys, we're in the dead of winter. The true new year is at the spring equinox when the sun enters the very first zodiac sign, which is Aries, and that happens at the end of March. And that's reflected in nature, where you actually see baby animals being birthed and new leaves coming on the trees. Like all of nature is coming back online in the spring. So if you don't feel motivated right now, that's totally fine. If you do, congratulations, that's great too. But I just want to remind you of that. All right, with that said, I will see you at the end for the custom Capricorn New Moon journal prompts. And I want to remind you to sign up for the Align newsletter, which is essentially a newsletter form of these videos that's emailed directly to you right before every new moon and full moon. And I also usually include a link for these videos, so it makes it really easy to essentially stay in touch and stay aligned. But that'll be linked in the bio. But with that said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hello to my Pisces friends. This Capricorn New Moon, so the Sun and Moon conjunct, along with Mercury and Mars, also in Capricorn, they're all throwing this cosmic party in your 11th house of your collaborators, your social networks. Think about your friends, your community, and also your sort of long-term goals, your visions for the future in terms of how you want to progress as a person and progress collectively in your country, your city, your town, your county, your neighborhood. And so for many of you, it definitely signifies that a few days leading up to the day of or a few days following this new moon, you might have some experiences that end up sort of mirroring back to you where you stand when it comes to your collaborators and your community. And I think that for some of you, you might have this mirror presented to you that inspires you to sort of reflect on what does actual balanced and healthy friendships and collaboration look like for you? What is your social network? Like if you had to pause right now and think, who's a part of my social network? These are some of the overarching themes that might be highlighted for you. I think that for some of you, especially with Mercury being at play here and Mars, Mercury being the planet of communication, information exchange, Mars being the planet of drive and passion, and also energy and action. I think that for many of you, around the time of this new moon, you might have some experiences where you get some news from friends, or you're a part of something, whether it's a party or something where you're collaborating, and it's through those experiences where you're in collaboration or where you're invited to be a part of something that it highlights for you maybe where you stand with these people, where they stand with you. Maybe you also might have some experiences where you kind of realize like who in your circle you want to bring closer to you and who maybe you want to set more boundaries with. And there could be pretty notable conversations that are happening around this time for you, especially because, again, Mercury being this planet of conversation, information exchange. But going back to the foundational themes of this new moon being in the sign of Capricorn, Capricorn is this sign that signifies how practical and realistic you are with what you're doing. And so for many of you, you might have some experiences that invite you to tap into that practicality in terms of your long-term goals, like how you want to progress and evolve into the future, especially at the start of this, new year and new moon. And so I think that for many of you, you also might have some experiences where you have these new ideas and you might be excited or called to present them to other people and be like, hey, I have this idea. Can I get some help with it? Or maybe somebody else comes to you. But around the time of this new moon, ultimately, I feel like for better or worse, you might have some experiences that really highlight the fundamental fact that we are community-based organisms. We are all interconnected. What happens to one person is something that can happen to all of us for better or worse. And it speaks to the importance of advocating for all of our community so that we're all safe. And I don't know. Yeah, so those are the overarching themes for you, my Pisces friends. And as a Pisces rising myself, I just want to say that We went through a lot, y'all, especially over the last year because Saturn is ending its transit through Pisces. Yeah. And also shout out to if you happen to be a Pisces rising and your natal Saturn is in Pisces, which means that your Saturn return is ending. But even if your natal Saturn isn't in Pisces, with Saturn being in our sign for the last 2.5+ years, 3 years, Saturn will be leaving Pisces mid-February. And so for many of us, we also might have like the last sort of signs and remnants of the challenges that were tied back to Pisces. And for a lot of us, that involved things having to do with, especially if you're a Pisces rising, things having to do with our identity, things having to do with our own self-image, things having to do with the things that we were trying to initiate and start. And for some of us, I don't know, I just want to say that like you're not alone. And a lot of those challenges for many of us when it comes to the things that we've been trying to initiate or feeling misunderstood or feeling like there's maybe a disconnect with our self-image and how the world views us, or feeling like we're constantly being called to mature, constantly being called to grow. And it's like, can I just be as I am for 1 second? A lot of that is tied back to Saturn being in Pisces, and it's going to end mid-February. So I just want to mention that. That's just a side note. But just a reminder, this Capricorn New Moon is happening in your 11th house, and that is all about your social networks and also progressiveness and evolution of your intentions and the things that you create with other people. So that is my reading for you, my Pisces friends. I'm sending you my love. I'll see you in just a second for the Capricorn New Moon custom journal prompts. And just a reminder to sign up for the Align newsletter that I write and send out right before every new moon and full moon. And it's essentially a newsletter version of these videos. And I usually link my videos in them so that even if you miss it on YouTube, you can get it there. But that is it for right now. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Hello. Okay. If I look any different, I fixed the lighting on here. There was an issue. Also, this is like a little pimple patch. I think you guys know that, but I just wanted to mention it. But moving on, everyone, let's get over to these custom Capricorn New Moon journaling prompts. What I do is I'm just going to read the prompts here, and you can pause and write them out in your Aura Astrology Planner, where there is a dedicated New Moon journaling section, or you can write them in a notebook, but these are your prompts. The first one is, do you have any long-term goals that essentially feel practical, but also really inspiring? And if so, what are those things? And also, if not, if you're like, nope, all of them are very practical, or nope, all of them are fully delusional in the best way, I feel very inspired, I'd like to hear about that too. Is there any area of your life where you could invite a little bit more practicality into it? So any sort of intentions or dreams that you've had that maybe deep down you really want, but maybe you've avoided going towards it because you don't even know the path ahead, or you feel like the path ahead would be very arduous. If you could bring some more practicality into that, if you could sit down and get clear on any basic steps that could be taken, what would that area of life be, and what would those steps be? And finally, do you have any Capricorn New Moon intentions? All right, y'all, that concludes these journal prompts. If you feel comfortable doing so, I'd love to hear in the comment section any new moon or even new year intentions that you have. Or since this is my first video back in the new year, I'd love to hear anything that you're proud of yourself most from 2025. Any sort of highlight or win that you want to share with the class so we can all celebrate and be happy for you too. If you made it to the end, I invite you to comment 3 notepad or pen emojis to sort of say, I don't know, I associate that with the practical energy of Capricorn, just being very like studious or pensive. Okay, so let me just do a little quick life update for some of you guys to tell you guys where I've been, because I haven't posted on here in like a month, and I missed the last Cancer full moon video. So essentially, as some of you already know, I've been posting pretty consistently on TikTok for almost a year now, off and on. And it wasn't until December that I opened up a TikTok shop where I was selling my Aura Astrology planners on TikTok. And essentially, As soon as I did that, the planners basically blew up with it's my definition of blow up. You know, there's some corporations that are like, blow up, you didn't sell that many. But for me as a small business, long story short, I'm nearly sold out. And I genuinely anticipated having enough inventory to last me at least through January, maybe mid-February. And I sold out of all wall calendars. Almost all the planners are gone. And it was a happy whirlwind of a thing that happened. But at the same time, that meant that I needed to really lock in with packing the orders and helping to do that and helping to coordinate things. After that, for the holidays, I went on a Christmas cruise. You guys, I went on a cruise with my family, and it was during Christmas. So we were like in the middle of the ocean on Christmas Day. And I was helping to coordinate that happening as well with everybody, you know, every family member, you know, making sure everything was coordinated, right? So there was that element of it too. So I took a break for the holidays and I did that. And guess what, y'all? I got home and I was sick. And I had, I don't even know, some type of lingering sick infection, I don't know what. And so that is why I missed my last video. And that's essentially where I've been. But I'm really, really excited for this new year because I'm excited to be back here, to be posting consistently. But with all that said, I will see you in the next video. I'm sending you my love. I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey, not the destination. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.